Our text today is from the Gospel reading. And they said unto Bartimaeus, Be of good cheer, rise up, the Master calleth for thee. Right from the start, the disciples did not want to make the journey up to Jerusalem. They had a bad feeling that things were not going to turn out well. But by the time they reached Jericho, that beautiful city of palms, the clouds lifted and their mood changed. The air seemed charged with electricity. Everywhere, people recognized Jesus, seemed like they were expecting Jesus, and joined in the happy throng as it made its way through the streets, increasing in numbers, gathering momentum as they headed down the stretch of road leading to the holy city. Suddenly the air was rent by a loud cry, Jesus, Jesus, Son of David, mercy, have mercy on. And in the commotion, nobody could tell where the voice was coming from. Over on the side of the road sat a blind man with a tin cup in his hand, begging alms from the passers-by. That was not unusual in this impoverished third world country on the wrong end of the Roman Empire. Nobody even knew the man's real name, for they called him by his family name, Timaeus, the son of Timaeus. He couldn't see, but his sense of hearing was sharp. He could identify the tramp of many feet, the noise of commotion he could not see, the cursing of the camel drivers, the creaking of the wagon wheels. He noticed a buzz of excitement in the voices, and from bits and pieces of the conversation, he learned that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. Now, he'd never seen Jesus, but word traveled quickly along the grapevine from the leper colonies to the infirmaries of what Jesus had done and could do for other people. Problem was, Bartimaeus didn't know where Jesus was, nearby or afar off, coming his way or already gone by. He didn't know if he was shouting right in somebody's face or into a tree 2 feet away. He couldn't see, but he could shout. And so he did. Jesus! They tell me you're out there somewhere, but I don't know where you are. Hear me. Have mercy on me. It was an awkward situation. And the crowd told him to pipe down. The Master's on a sacred pilgrimage. That was a callous thing to do. But kindness does not count for much in a crowd. Any crowd. At a ballpark, a rock concert, shopping mall, or even a church crowd. The stock reply of the crowd to anyone in need is, "Oh, be quiet, stop your whining." And our nice little Christian crowd, a nice little church, nice little activities. We don't want any interruption in the stately flow of worship from the bell to the benediction. We don't want any outcries of pain and loneliness and need. Shh. Not here. Not now. Contact the medical clinic, the welfare department, social services. Maybe the crowd was frightened by the frown on the face of the clergy. These guys didn't like Jesus to start with, and soon they would have him on their home turf. And now this blind guy's just riling them up more, calling Jesus the Son of David, the Messianic title, the one who would usher in the everlasting kingdom. But I don't think Bartimaeus was thinking of that. Bartimaeus knew the David story. Heck, everybody knows some of the David story. David and Goliath. David in the wilderness. David among the Philistines. God shielding David. God guiding David. God loving David. God saving David. Anybody who was a relative of David would know about mercy. For whoever received more of God's mercy than David did. And he didn't pipe down either. As a rule, handicapped people do not like to make a scene in public because they know healthy people are embarrassed in their presence. Healthy people want them to creep off into a corner out of sight and lick their wounds. Bartimaeus just shouted all the louder. Now, it wasn't the usual approach. But then, there were others who had approached Jesus in an unorthodox manner. The story was about 4 guys who tore a roof off a house just to get to Jesus. And another one who climbed up into a sycamore tree. A woman sneaked up on Jesus in a crowd just to touch the hem of his garment. And another flung herself down on the roadway, defying Jesus to step over her. And there's that weird story about one guy who even tried walking on the water to Jesus. Bartimaeus is desperate. He casts all caution. He doesn't know if Jesus is ever going to pass through Jericho again. And the fact of the matter is, Jesus never did. So Bartimaeus ignored the crowd. And so did Jesus. He was not impressed with your crowd, was not stampeded by the crowd, was not deafened by the roar of the crowd. One cry from the roadside, one voice calling out in the night for mercy. And Jesus was there at once, unconditionally. He stopped the whole parade and said, "Call him." Now, isn't that a great feature? I've read the evangelism literature on the 4 spiritual laws and 7 steps to successful soul winning. Looks good on paper. Hey, sounds good in the seminary classroom. But in my experience, people are not all that predictable. They don't come in neat and tidy categories, all properly sorted and labeled according to type. Life is too complicated for that. Too wide and high and deep for one size to fit all. And so, if we were to do a survey here this morning of ourselves, I would wager that not 2 experiences here are exactly the same. Not 2 roads from there to here are identical. How mysteriously, how strangely we are led, even when we cannot see Christ clearly. And only hear that there's one out there who can lift life up from defeat and lighten the burdens that are too heavy to be borne. And where that Christ is exalted, the church lives. And when that Christ and that hope are shoved off to the fringe, the fire on your altar will die. Now the busy, bustling, hard-charging crowd never notices what's going up on the roadside. They never see Christian men and women who will stop in the rat race and drop out for a while for the single person up there who's in need. It might be an aged parent who's waiting to hear the sound of your footstep in the hall and your familiar voice. It may be some friend of yours who's laid up and now put on a shelf. Hey, it might be the members of your family who simply take it for granted that you will be there every day, all day, for them. Now the crowd says that's time-consuming, trivial, a mere drop in the bucket. But Jesus places high value on those drops in the bucket. And typically of a crowd, the crowd now does a 180-degree turn. The same people were telling Bartimaeus to shut up a minute ago and now say, be of good cheer, rise up, the Master calleth for thee. And Bartimaeus does not neatly fold his mantle, hand it to somebody and say, would you watch this for me? I'll be right back in a minute. He throws the thing away. His bedroll for the night. Ain't going to be needing this thing no more. No more cold nights on a chilly park bench. And he rushes. Picture a blind man rushing through a crowd, bumping into people. Excuse me, sorry, I beg your pardon. And stands in front of Jesus. And Jesus says the strangest thing. What is it that you want me to do for you? What? Doesn't he know? Couldn't you guess that a blind man would want his sight? Well, Jesus holds to that question. What is it that you want me to do for you? Be precise. Put it into words. Tell me exactly what it is you want, because you may get it. You get your eyesight back, you're going to get a whole mess of responsibilities that go along with it. Talk to a guy who stops by the parsonage a lot. And finally ask, you want to be healed? Oh no, you don't want that. That's too painful. He just wants temporary relief from the discomfort. You see, a disfigured life has many advantages. Like the infamous prayer of St. Augustine when he was a young man. Oh Lord, deliver me from lust, but not now. Well, he wanted a cleaner, better life, but not just yet. I'm having too much fun. It wasn't all bad for Bartimaeus, sitting there under a shade tree every day, while everybody else is out there in the heat and dust, toiling and sweating for a living. Hey, there are advantages to drawing attention to yourself, playing upon people's sympathy, always with your hand out, always on the receiving end, always taking and taking. Now, that's a shabby way to live, but hey, you do get your piece of the pie. It's like throwing a temper tantrum. It's a lousy act, but it works. People will give you your way just because they don't want to hassle. Now, Jesus wants the Word. Because Jesus knows you can receive all kinds of gifts from God without knowing God. You can talk. I mean, really speak. Open up, reveal yourself only to someone you know and trust. You can exchange pleasantries with your neighbor over the backyard fence or with the person in front of you in the checkout line at the grocery store. But you can really talk only. Well, married people know all about this. How easily conversation is reduced to mere formality. Pass the salt. Did you take the garbage out? I'll be home late on Thursday. And when the deep things of the soul are no longer mutually exchanged, intimacy, confidence, doubts, and aspirations, that relationship may not yet be dead, but it certainly is dying. And they always say that later on when they found somebody else. She understands my deeper male needs. Yeah, right. What is it that you really want? What good is your eyesight, hands, feet, mind, if you don't know what to do with them? Into whose service you should put them? Perfect vision would have made Bartimaeus a healthy person, but it would never have made him a whole person, body and spirit. And so Jesus tells him, go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. When life crowds you out, and you're pushed off to the side, and you don't fit in anymore, you listen for that voice above the crowd. Be of good cheer. Rise up. The Master is calling for you. Amen.